Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I wanted to make this video as an introduction to the channel. My name is Sam. I'm doing my doctorate in Middle East history. On this channel I just mostly want to post things I find interesting. I have another channel where I talk about tabletop games, but I thought I'd make this one and it would just be more about the languages and kind of more related to what I do for my real job. And so I just wanted to share kind of my journey with studying foreign languages and kind of the idea for the channel. So philology is not really taught anymore as like a degree in any university, as far as I know. The closest, philology was pretty much supplanted by linguistics, the field of linguistics. If anyone knows philology now, they probably hear it when they talk about J.R.R. Tolkien of Lord of the Rings, of course, because he was an Anglo-Saxon philologist, and I think he may have studied other languages. I'm sure he did, but and the discipline of philology has deep kind of roots, goes way back. I mean, probably even before even into like classical antiquity, in sort of the Greek and Roman tradition. You also have philology in the Islamic world, pretty much from the beginning of sort of the early Islamic period. I mean, you're writing the Arabic, and then as the empire expands, they come into contact with Persians and Turks, and they have to learn their languages and that sort of thing. So it's very old, but in our current period, it's mostly taught kind of indirectly. If you're in maybe like a program like me, you're doing like a kind of non-Western, non-European kind of history, or perhaps if you do medieval history in the European setting, but like also the different area studies departments like East Asian studies or Middle East studies, that kind of thing. But the difference, or the main, I think, purpose of philology is to do, focus on the texts, so the literary and historical literature of a particular culture, wherever that may be. I found that way of learning languages to be a lot more rewarding for me personally. So I did Spanish and French in high school, and that was fine. I mean, that's sort of as fine as I can be. And then when I got to college, I thought about studying German, but I just did not really have much discipline, and I didn't really have a goal. That was the biggest problem, I think, for my language process. I just never really had a defined goal. And then as I was finishing my BA, I started graduate school. I always knew I wanted to do graduate school, and my initial idea was I wanted to work in some kind of East Asian or Asian kind of history. At the time, I was not really confident in my language learning abilities, and so, is that kind of a crisis? Not exactly a huge crisis, but, a moment in life you have to decide. And then I took this course in graduate seminar in Islamic history with a very good professor of mine, and, I hadn't really thought about Turkish or the Ottoman Empire really at all. It's not. I think it's changing, but it just really wasn't ever discussed. And when especially with kind of the Islamic world, if you want to use that term, there was always an assumption, or in kind of public school, and then even in my university education, that it's sort of mostly Arabic. That's kind of the main idiom, and the Arabs, however we choose to define that, are kind of the main focus. Obviously, that's pretty simplistic from the way the curriculum is designed, but that was the way it was sort of presented to me. So I never really gave it much thought, and I had a really good experience, and was learning about Turkish, and I started watching some videos on YouTube that were just describing the grammar for fun, and and I found it to be really interesting. And then I told the professor, I just mentioned it before we started in class one day, and he said, "Oh, if you want to try this, get this book, and we can work on it." Oh, we can work on it together, and that was kind of what started this big snowball. And hopefully this won't all crash. So yeah, Robert Underhill's Turkish Grammar. This was published by MIT Press quite a while ago, in the 1978 or 79. Oh, 76, yeah, MIT Press. This is a really great learning grammar. Very simple, easy to set up. Some of the sentences in the exercises can be a little clunky, but that's going to happen, I think, in any instructional book. But yeah, this is what got me started, and it was just going to my professor's office hours, and we sat together, and we just worked on this. And then eventually, it came time, I had to write my thesis, and so I was doing Ottoman history. So we decided to just start diving into an Ottoman text that I was going to use ostensibly for the thesis, which I did end up using some of it, although it was pretty demanding. And I had to learn Ottoman Turkish, which was another challenge, because Ottoman is quite different. In the 1920s, the new Turkish Republic did a pretty extensive language reform, and then over the kind of intervening decades, there have been changes to the modern Turkish language that have sort of just changed it, taken out a lot of the Persian and Arabic words. Although for me, I think I like Ottoman better. I think it has just a really broad range and a very extensive kind of depth that is really appealing, because kind of like how English we have Germanic and kind of Latin languages in there, so it gives us this really rich kind of sense. I think Ottoman is kind of similar to that. But I had to buy this dictionary, which, as you can see, has been through pretty extensive use, and pretty beat up. And we'll get to Persian in a second, but then the next language I started to work on, kind of at the same time as Turkish, was Hungarian. Hungarian is really important in the history of Ottoman Empire. But Hungarian is not an easy language to learn, and I would say, honestly, Ottoman Turkish is easier than Hungarian. But these are some of the books I got to learn Hungarian. This is the first grammar. This is not my favorite Hungarian grammar, but it is easy to find, which is nice. I'm not sure why there's this weird texture on the cover. I guess maybe this coating that's on it is coming off. I don't know. Yeah, not my favorite grammar, but it's accessible. The typesetting is neat. To be honest, I haven't used this one a lot, but it is an option out there. I should say, the good thing though about going from a Turkic language to Hungarian is Hungarian is also a glutative with a case system. So you have, instead of having prepositions, you have suffixes and cases, which I don't think English has very few cases, but trying to see if you have the verb. This is what subjunctive endings. Hungarian is very complex, and I would just want to take the time here. None of these languages I would consider myself completely fluent in. Most of my knowledge is for reading, and like Hungarian, I still have a ways to go before I would say I have a very good handle on reading it. Although I can sort of do basic speaking because had the opportunity to live there for a little less than a year. Wasn't the easiest experience because it was during the pandemic year, but I did do it, and Hungarian is not an easy one to learn, and speaking is not it's always challenging, but Hungarians incidentally are very good philologists. I mean, historically going back to the 19th century and probably even before that. This is another one. This is one I got from a professor who was retiring, Hungarian in Words and Pictures. This is a really nice textbook, I have to say. Very clear, and the pictures do help a lot. The only thing is there's some weird symbols that I think were for whatever curriculum this was designed for. They're not always, it's not super obvious. I think there's some tapes or something that were meant to go with this. This was published back in the 60s. But oh boy, I need to photocopy this probably because this is really, really useful. This was published 1990, so this is more recent. Textbook for foreigners. Magyar nyelvekkönyv. And it's also got a really fun sound. But this was the second, so I kind of did this out of order, but this was the second Hungarian textbook I got. This one is from the 60s, I believe. And this one has a nice message in it that I cannot quite read the handwriting. 1965, so this was done quite old, but this is a nice textbook. I mean, really, probably one of the best Hungarian textbooks. It's very clear. The reading exercises are well done, and there's also pictures in this one that are helpful. And Hungarian just has a really interesting sound. Ez a lila füredi üdülő hatalmas pompás palota itt üdül. Kis András a kiváló vasmunkás ül és olvas, sportújságot olvassa, Szabó és Molnár szaktársak és újságot olvasnak. So, not related to any of the neighboring European languages, and you can probably tell that. But even though my Hungarian is really not the strongest, I do enjoy it, and I do like reading it. It's very interesting. And then the next language is Persian, which was kind of a white whale for me for a while. Right now, I'm studying it kind of with an instructor reading a text. And it wasn't because of lack of will or trying on my part. It was just, one of those things in life that the opportunity to study it just never materialized, never really presented itself. But I did try self-studying, at various times. So this is one of the actual physical books I have, Introduction to Persian by Wheeler Thaxton. This is really nice. Not the only textbook out there, but I think it's good. And Thaxton has translated a ton of historical Persian text literature, so he has a sensitivity, I think, to the that kind of language, and also he has exercises for reading the Nastaliq, kind of the traditional handwriting. That's very nice. The other textbook I used or the one I've used more recently, which is also good, is by Anne K.S. Lambton. She was a really interesting Persianist in the mid-20th century, British, and she was, at that time, I think she was probably the only major woman Persianist in Britain. I don't know, but anyway, very good scholar, and has also wrote a grammar, which I don't have here. I have the PDF, but that's another one. Anne Lambton, Lambton. But Thaxton is also very good, and of course you need to have a dictionary if you're going to read texts, and that's I have the Steingast dictionary that I got in Turkey. And I did try, so after I had spent time in Hungary, I went to Turkey for a couple of years to study there, and that's where my kind of spoken Turkish improved a little bit, although learning the kind of street language is always, not street language, but the kind of everyday language is going to be a little different, of course. But I got this Persian dictionary when I was there, and I was trying to read Persian, teach it to myself, which is really hard. It's very difficult to do that, and I had other things going on, so I didn't quite internalize it. I spent a lot of time making notes and trying to memorize it, and I did kind of pick up some of the basic grammar points, but it's only recently where I've been able to formally study it that I've had time to do that, to really get it. And then also got this is my other Ottoman dictionary, another thing. This one's been with me a lot. The cover is torn off. I need to get this rebound, but it's been through a lot. But this is the reprint of the one of the probably the most important Ottoman lexicons. This was by Sir James Redhouse in the 19th century. So he compiled this from a lot of the Ottoman, so the Ottoman to Ottoman dictionaries, so the Lugat that existed, and he made this dictionary of Ottoman Turkish to English, and this is important for, I mostly read manuscripts, and this is important because it's got the Arabic script first. It's organized by that in alphabetical order, not by root, like a lot of Arabic dictionaries are, like the Hansfera dictionary, for example. But there's others too. Whereas this one is organized by the Latin letters, but it's got the Arabic as well. But this is better for reading transliterated texts, so which the Turkish historians are very good at, especially like the Turkish Historical Association, the Tarih Kurumu. Like this one, we have an edition of Kemal Pashazade's Tevari Ali Osman. So this is about Sultan Suleiman's reign, and as you can see, they've done transliteration with the diacritical marks, so you know what the letters are, the original Arabic letters are. Ottoman is very interesting because it's kind of, you've got Persian elements. So if you know Persian, this is like the Izafet, and it's Turkish grammar, but you have a lot of Arabic words of Arabic origin and Persian words. A lot of Persian, post-Islamic Persian comes out of Arabic as well, and Turkish words as well. So probably my favorite language of all those I've studied, but also it's the one I've devoted the most time to, and the one I think at this point I've been reading it for 4 years, give or take. Almost 5 years, 4 or 5 years, I guess. That's the one I've devoted the most time to, and at this point I can read fairly competently. But one thing with especially these kind of classical languages, whether it's older Persian or Ottoman Turkish, is you never really fully master it. I was listening to a video with a scholar named Dick Davis, who's translated a lot of kind of Hafez and some of those other Persian poets, he talks about I think he was talking about Hafez. Hafez has a really big vocabulary, and he needs to look up a lot of words in the dictionary. So if I figure if Dick Davis has to look up things in the dictionary, then I'm doing okay, just kind of plugging along, right. And then a couple, the last two I'll talk about. One I'll just go through quickly is I had a chance to study Old Tibetan, and although it's not something I devoted a lot of time to, I don't know how extensively I will. I did learn how to read the alphabet, and although I'm kind of out of practice, and I probably need to rememorize a lot of the letters, but I did have the opportunity to learn Old Tibetan. This is Yashke. He was one of these 19th century Protestant missionaries and compiled this dictionary. But this dictionary is important if you want to read classical and Old Tibetan. So that's Old Tibetan is from the 7th and 8th century AD. The era of the Tibetan Empire, and then classical Tibetan is kind of postdates that, and is used in a lot of Buddhist texts. I enjoyed reading the old Tibetan annals in the class I took to learn this, and I kind of wish I could work more with Tibetan, but most of the work scholarship is based on more like Buddhist studies, and that's fine, but it's just I'm more interested kind of in the historical stuff, like the politics, and not that religion isn't historical, but like kind of the political and sort of history, and the sources tend to be more kind of Buddhist, and also they are calques of Sanskrit, so even the Tibetan is a little different than like the old Tibetan annals are kind of a narrative, are a narrative historical chronicle, and then a lot of the stuff that's been digitized online tends to be Buddhist texts that are Sanskrit calques, which is a type of translation that's kind of like word for word from the original, if I'm remembering correctly what the precise definition is, but that's that. So maybe, who knows, maybe I'll find something and try to start working on Tibetan again. We'll see. And the last language that I'm hoping to make a bigger, longer video about, because it's my mostly because there's really no videos about it on YouTube that are good, I would say, is the Chagatai language. So this is the Central Asian literary language from about the 14th, 15th century, so to the early 19th century. And the best textbook to learn Chagatai is by Eric Schlussel, An Introduction to Chagatai, a graded textbook for reading Central Asian sources. And this is available digitally online for free. It's a really nice textbook and teaches you things very well. And he uses historical texts to teach. So if you want to read Chagatai, which is also known as Turkey, Turki, it's useful for reading that. Yeah, the language today that would be closest to Chagatai is would be Uzbek, probably. So if you know modern Uzbek, you can kind of work back to Chagatai. The main problem with learning Chagatai is there's not a big dictionary like Red House or Steingass. You kind of have to pick things up. So you know, most of the time if you're working with Chagatai sources, you have to kind of use Steingass and Red House, although the Ottoman orthography is a lot different than Chagatai, so it's doesn't always work. And so that kind of makes it difficult, although I think there's a lot more resources if you can read Russian. There's more because Russian Orientalists were more attentive to studying Central Asia historically because of the Russian imperial expansion there. But yeah, if you ever want to pick up a Chagatai book for learning, this is, I think, the nicest one. There are other ones out there. There's Janusz Eichmann's Chagatai Manual, which was, I think, probably the first in English, as far as I know. There's another one whose name escapes me. The Eichmann Chagatai Manual, you can probably find that online. That is a bit not the most user-friendly. And there's another one by an Italian scholar whose name escapes me at the moment. I want to do a video just on Chagatai, so I'll make sure to check that. Yeah, I think Schlussel's is the most user-friendly and has a lot of good selections as far as the texts are concerned. And then as far as my collection, I have the Dictionnaire Turc Oriental by Pavet de Courtrai. This is Chagatai or Turkey to French, which is not I kind of have sort of very basic reading of French. But this is not so comprehensive a dictionary. There's things that are missing in it. I'm sure Pavet de Courtrai did his best, and this is a reprint from one of those Indian printers you can find like on Abe Books, but it does make a nice looking book on the shelf with this kind of publishing, and it does have some nice like examples from texts, different literary works, I think. So yeah, but there's no solid dictionary yet. Hopefully someone could do that. Maybe a scholar in the US or scholar in Uzbekistan, or I don't know, anywhere in Central Asia. And because probably the most famous Chagatai book is the Baburnama of the founder of the Mughal dynasty, Babur. This is my favorite book, really, to read, because Babur is kind of pretty remarkable, and he's so honest, and you can really, it's kind of unusual for this kind of time period to have an autobiography like this that's so like real. Like you can really feel like he's giving you his opinion and his feelings, And this is translated by Thaxton, who did the Persian grammar. And there's been quite a few, not quite a few, there's been a few translations of this out there, but this was originally written in Chagatai and then translated into Persian, because the Mughals were later, used Persian as their kind of primary language of administration. That's all right. This is kind of long, but that's the introduction to my channel. And I guess as just to close out, what is kind of advice for language learning? Advice needs to be tailored to the individual. But I found what helped me most in kind of going on this language journey was that having a goal and reading some kind of manuscript or text that I found to be interesting, and that was more motivating because I felt like I was really discovering something. Maybe you're motivated by just wanting to communicate, and that's fine. And there's a lot of channels on YouTube that do that. But I think if your goal is communication and you say, hey, I want to talk to this friend of mine in a foreign language, I think that's good that there is some kind of goal. But something that is tangible, I think, is good, because if you sort of just chase, I want to be fluent, I think fluency is very kind of amorphous and sort of loaded often, and it also kind of inculcates a feeling that this is sort of something we can check off a certain number of steps, and then we can, finally we will arrive at fluency. And rather, the more productive thing, I think, is to approach whatever language you want to tackle as a kind of lifetime project, because that's what it's going to be. And, just kind of going slow and being patient with yourself. Something I should probably take my own advice on that. But and not viewing it as a kind of thing to obtain, like an object. It's more of a process, and you have to kind of enjoy the process and just put the time in. That's what I've noticed over the years. I think that's all I have to say for this video. For my next video, hopefully soon, I will make a video discussing Chagatai and just a little bit about the language and some of the main historical and literary texts that are written in it. It's very interesting. Among the Turkic languages, it's less well known, and that's kind of why I wanted to make this channel, was just to put a video on YouTube about it, and tell people about it, and so they could maybe go off and try to learn it. So thanks for listening, and I will speak to you in the next video.